June 4th, 1942, bridge of the aircraft carrier Akagi, 240 nautical miles northwest of Midway Atoll. Admiral Nimitz, suffering from pneumonia, stood on the bridge in his pajamas. The Japanese attack force was preparing to take off. In the pre-dawn darkness, for aircraft carriers, 11 battleships, and more than 200 warships, formed the most powerful naval force ever assembled in Japanese history. Over 6 months of war, this fleet had never tasted defeat. The confidence of the Imperial Japanese Navy was absolute. At Pearl Harbor, they had sunk or severely damaged 8 U.S. battleships, conquered the Philippines, humiliated the British in Singapore, and seized an empire spanning 20 million square miles. Now they would eliminate the remaining forces of the U.S. Navy in the Pacific. That morning, Nimitz and every Japanese officer believed the United States had at most 2 operational aircraft carriers in the Pacific, and they were most likely in the South Pacific. In the Coral Sea, the heavily damaged USS Yorktown required months of repairs. Complete radio silence meant absolute safety. No one suspected that Admiral Nimitz had been deciphering their communications for weeks. American codebreakers had cracked JN-25B, the Japanese naval cipher. As Nimitz studied his charts, 233 American warplanes were being armed on 3 aircraft carriers that should not have been there within 14 hours. The Imperial Japanese Navy would suffer its first decisive defeat, lose 4 irreplaceable aircraft carriers, and watch 3,357 of its finest naval aviators and crew perish. The myth of Japanese invincibility would sink along with the burning carriers, and with it, Japan's chance of winning the Pacific War. The collapse began with mathematical calculations that favored Japan. The combined fleet under Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto boasted resources of 8 aircraft carriers versus the U.S. Pacific Fleet's 3, 11 battleships versus 0, and approximately 248 carrier-based aircraft versus 233. The operational plan involved 200 warships operating across millions of square miles of ocean. According to official Japanese combat reports, the assessment of U.S. weakness seemed reasonable. In the 6 months after Pearl Harbor, Japanese victories had exceeded their own expectations. 85,000 British troops surrendered in Singapore. The ABDA fleet was destroyed in the Java Sea. Burma was conquered. Each victory reinforced the belief in Japanese superiority. Vice Admiral Nimitz, commander of the 1st Air Fleet, had expressed concerns about the complexity of the operational plan during staff meetings. His chief of staff, Rear Admiral Ryanosuke Kosaka, warned that the plan violated the principle of concentration of forces. But these worries were dismissed. Similarly, officers had voiced doubts before the attack on Pearl Harbor. The Japanese Navy operated on several fatal assumptions, all documented in post-war interrogations. U.S. carriers were in the South Pacific. The Yorktown needed 3 months of repairs. American torpedo bombers were ineffective. U.S. pilots lacked experience. And most critically, complete radio silence guaranteed surprise. At Station HYPO in Pearl Harbor, Commander Joseph Rockefort led a team of codebreakers working in a sweltering basement. By May 1942, they could read 15% to 20% of Japanese naval communications, enough to piece together patterns and intentions. The breakthrough came through meticulous analysis. When Japanese messages repeatedly referenced AF as a target, Rockefort suspected it was Midway. To confirm this, Commander Jasper Holmes proposed a deception. Midway sent an uncoded emergency message reporting a failure of its freshwater distillation equipment. 2 days later, Japanese intelligence reported in the JN-25 cipher that the AF airfield was short of fresh water. Admiral Nimitz's intelligence officer, Lieutenant Commander Edwin Layton, later testified to Congress, "We knew their target, their route, their timetable. We could predict with astonishing accuracy which ships would be where and when." The intelligence victory extended far beyond location. American code analysts identified the Japanese order of battle, the attack date June 4th or 5, and even the approach route. This information allowed Nimitz to position his carriers northeast of Midway, a sector not fully covered by Japanese search patterns. The story of a USS Yorktown exemplified American industrial capacity. Damage in the Coral Sea, a bomb had penetrated its flight deck, and a near miss had torn open fuel tanks. Japanese intelligence estimated 3 months of repairs were needed. At Pearl Harbor, a skeleton crew completed the work in 72 hours, according to official Navy records. From May 27th to 29th, 1,400 workers labored around the clock. Repair teams sailed with the ship, continuing work en route to Midway. The speed of the repairs seemed impossible to Japanese planners, who required weeks to complete similar work. At 4:30 a.m. on June 4th, Vice Admiral Nimitz ordered the launch of 108 aircraft to attack Midway, 36 Type 97 carrier attack planes, 36 Type 99 carrier dive bombers, and 36 Zero fighter planes. The launch proceeded flawlessly, demonstrating professionalism gained through 6 months of victories. Nimitz made a critical decision, documented in Japanese combat reports. He launched only 7 search planes, instead of the 22 required by doctrine. An 8th was delayed from the cruiser Tone due to catapult failure. This 30-minute delay would prove catastrophic. At 5:34 a.m., a PBY Catalina seaplane from Midway spotted the Japanese fleet. At 5:53 a.m., Midway radar detected the incoming strike force. All operational aircraft were scrambled urgently. Marine fighter planes, torpedo bombers, diva bombers, and even B-17s. The Americans had been waiting for them. Leading the attack on Midway was Commander David Parker, who radioed that a second wave was needed. Midway's defenses proved stronger than expected, and its airfields remained operational. Nimitz was now faced with a fateful choice that would determine the outcome of the battle. His second wave of aircraft was armed with armor-piercing bombs and torpedoes for attacking warships, with no enemy fleet detected. At 7:15 a.m., he ordered them rearmed with fragmentation bombs for ground attack. This decision, documented in surviving Japanese logs, caused chaos on the hangar decks. Japanese doctrine required unloaded ordnance to be returned to the magazines, but time constraints led to a fatal shortcut. Bombs and torpedoes were stacked on the hangar decks. At 7:28 a.m., the delayed search plane from the Tone reported sighting what appeared to be 10 enemy surface ships at a bearing of 10 degrees, 240 nautical miles from Midway. This vague report triggered frantic activity. Could these be the carriers they feared? At 7:45 a.m., Nimitz requested confirmation of the ship types. No reply came for a critical 30 minutes. Between 9:20 a.m. and 10:20 a.m., 3 American torpedo bomber squadrons located the Japanese carriers. The attacks seemed suicidal. The obsolete TBD Devastators flew straight and level at 120 knots against Zero fighter planes capable of 330 knots. Torpedo Squadron 8 from the USS Hornet attacked first. 14 of its 15 aircraft were shot down immediately. The sole survivor was Ensign George Gay, who watched his squadron be annihilated from the water. His post-war report described Zeros slicing through the formation repeatedly, systematically destroying each plane. Torpedo Squadron 6 from the USS Enterprise lost 10 of 14 aircraft. Torpedo Squadron 3 from the USS Yorktown lost 10 of 12. Not a single torpedo hit a Japanese ship. Japanese post-war reports describe these attacks as brave, but foolish. They failed to realize that these unsuccessful assaults had drawn all Zero fighter planes down to sea level, leaving the high altitude undefended. At 10:20 a.m., Major Wade McClusky, leading dive bombers from the Enterprise, arrived overhead. McClusky had searched beyond his calculated intercept point, made a logical deduction to turn north, and followed the wake of a destroyer that was speeding to rejoin the formation. According to his post-war report, the carrier decks were covered with aircraft, clearly preparing for takeoff, and no fighter planes were visible at high altitude. At 10:22 a.m., the attack began. Lieutenant Commander Richard Best's 1,000-pound bomb penetrated the Kaga's flight deck and exploded in the hangar amid stacked ordnance. Secondary explosions tore through the hull within seconds. Meanwhile, dive bombers from Yorktown hit the Soryu. 3 bombs turned it into a hellscape in 20 seconds. The Kaga was struck by 4 direct hits from Enterprise bombers. The first penetrated near the forward elevator, exploding among fueled aircraft. By 10:28 a.m., 3 Japanese carriers had suffered fatal damage. The mathematics were staggering. Only 3 of the 41 dive bombers involved in the attack were shot down in 6 minutes. The balance of naval power in the Pacific was permanently altered. The slow death of the Japanese carriers and the details of their destruction were documented by surviving officers in post-war interrogations. The Akagi burned for nearly 12 hours. Captain Taijiro Aoki attempted to save the ship until Admiral Yamamoto personally ordered its abandonment on June 5th. At 4:50 a.m., Japanese destroyers fired 4 Type 93 torpedoes to sink it to prevent capture. It sank at 5:20 a.m. with 267 crew members killed. The Kaga's fires were uncontrollable due to broken fire mains. Commander Takao Takeda ordered abandonment at 4:40 p.m. It exploded and sank at 7:25 p.m. with 811 casualties, the highest among the 4 carriers. The Soryu sank at 7:13 p.m. on June 4th after burning for 9 hours. Captain Ryosuke Yanagimoto chose to go down with the ship. According to survivor testimonies, he was last seen on the bridge as the ship sank. Casualties numbered 711. The Hiri, the only carrier to survive the morning attacks, launched 2 counterattacks, severely damaging the Yorktown. But at 5 p.m., American dive bombers found it and scored 4 direct hits. It sank at 9 a.m. on June 5th. Rear Admiral Taman Yamaguchi and Captain Tomio Kaku chose to go down with the ship. Total losses for 116 men. The survival of the Yorktown demonstrated the superiority of American damage control. Despite 3 bomb hits in the Hiryu's first attack and 2 torpedo hits in the second, it remained afloat for 2 days. It finally sank on June 7th after being hit by 2 torpedoes from the Japanese submarine I-168. Total U.S. losses: 307 men killed, 1 aircraft carrier, 1 destroyer, the USS Hammond, and 150 aircraft. Japanese losses: 3,357 men killed, 4 fleet carriers, 1 heavy cruiser, the Mikuma, which sank on June 6, 248 aircraft, and 110 irreplaceable veteran aircrew. Post-war analysis revealed the completeness of America's intelligence advantage. A declassified 2006 NSA historical study confirmed that Station HYPO provided the exact attack date within 1 day, the complete Japanese order of battle, approach routes and deployment patterns, and even plans for Japan's occupation of Midway. The study concluded, no military operation in history has ever begun with such complete knowledge of the enemy's intentions. At 11:55 p.m. on June 4th, Admiral Yamamoto canceled Operation MI and ordered retreat. He was aboard the super battleship Yamato, 300 nautical miles behind the carriers, possessing the most powerful surface fleet in history, yet powerless to change the outcome. According to official combat reports, Yamamoto considered a night surface engagement with his battleships. His staff calculated they could reach the U.S. fleet position by 8 a.m., but without air cover and facing U.S. carriers at dawn. The risk was deemed unacceptable. This retreat marked the first time in the war that a Japanese operation was canceled due to enemy action. The impact of Midway extended beyond immediate losses. Japan's strategic initiative in the Pacific ended on June 4, 1942. Every subsequent operation will be defensive or reactive. The loss of pilots proved irreparable. The 110 aircrew lost had an average of over 800 flight hours each. Many were veterans of the 1937 Second Sino-Japanese War. Japan's pre-war training system produced only about 100 pilots per year. The U.S. Navy was then training 2,500 pilots per month. Japan's naval doctrine, based on the decisive battle concept forged in the 1905 Battle of Tsushima, proved obsolete. The Americans demonstrated that naval warfare had become a contest of industrial production and intelligence, not samurai spirit. Verified production statistics revealed Japan's desperate situation after Midway. Aircraft carrier production. From Midway to the end of the war, Japan completed 12 aircraft carriers. The United States completed 141, 17 fleet carriers, and 124 escort carriers. Aircraft production, 1942 to 1945 Japan, produced approximately 65,000 aircraft. The United States, 297,000. Pilot training. By 1944, Japanese pilots averaged 150 to 200 flight hours before combat. American pilots averaged over 600 hours. Industrial capacity. America's national income was 17 times that of pre-war Japan. The United States supplied 2/3 of the Allied military equipment. Post-war Japanese technical analysis revealed systemic flaws, carrier design defects, enclosed hangars trapped explosion shockwaves, inadequate firefighting systems, poor damage control procedures, and insufficient ventilation. Aircraft defects. The Zero fighter lacked armor and self-sealing fuel tanks, sacrificing survivability for performance. No effective pilot rescue system existed. Operational flaws. Inadequate search patterns. 7 planes versus the doctrinal 22. Poor radio discipline despite maintaining silence. And rigid tactical doctrine. American damage control, exemplified by the Yorktown survival through multiple attacks, reflected its superiority. Crews were fully trained in firefighting, equipped with carbon dioxide systems, foam generators, portable pumps, redundant system designs, and better compartmentalization. Doctrine emphasized preservation over honorable death. Japanese carriers proved highly vulnerable to single hits, destroyed by their own ordnance explosions. A problem identified but not fully corrected after Midway. The role of intelligence in victory cannot be overstated. According to Admiral Nimitz's post-war assessment, if we had not known the Japanese movements in advance, if our carrier forces had been caught dispersed, the outcome of the Battle of Midway would have been different. Station HYPO's achievement went beyond code breaking. They provided actionable intelligence that allowed precise positioning of U.S. carriers, preparation of Midway's defenses, conservation of resources by avoiding Japanese search areas, and achievement of tactical surprise despite numerical inferiority. Post-war interrogations revealed command issues. Inadequate reconnaissance, documented in combat reports. Hesitation in rearming, corroborated by multiple witnesses. Failure to launch available aircraft when under attack. And poor coordination with supporting forces. Strategic mistakes included an overly complex plan requiring perfect timing. Dispersion of forces, conducting the Aleutian operation simultaneously. Underestimation of American capabilities, and disregard of intelligence warnings about increased U.S. radio communications. The loss of veteran pilots at Midway triggered a chain reaction, documented in Japanese training records. Before Midway, Japanese pilots trained for 500 to 700 hours over 2 years. After Midway, an emergency program reduced training to 150 to 200 hours over 4 months. By 1944, some pilots were deployed with fewer than 100 hours. American pilot quality continued to improve, averaging 400 training hours in 1942, 500 in 1943, and over 600 in 1944. The experience gap became insurmountable. In the 1944 Battle of the Philippine Sea, Japanese pilots averaged 200 flight hours versus over 600 for American pilots. The result: Japan lost 346 aircraft, the United States 30. Midway forced Japan to recognize American industrial hegemony. According to captured Japanese documents, planners calculated that matching U.S. carrier production would require 300% of Japan's total steel output. Matching aircraft production would require 400% of its aluminum capacity. And matching pilot training would require fuel oil that Japan did not possess. The mathematics of defeat were inescapable. The impact of Midway was felt in every subsequent Pacific campaign. Guadalcanal, August 1942, Japan committed forces piecemeal, unable to concentrate the carrier strength lost at Midway. Santa Cruz, October 1942, Japan achieved a tactical victory, but lost 99 aircrew versus 26 Americans, a war of attrition it could not sustain. Philippine Sea, June 1944, Japan's rebuilt carrier force was destroyed, losing 476 aircraft and 450 aircrew in the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Midway exposed a technological gap that widened throughout the war. Radar. The U.S. had shipboard radar. Japan relied on visual observation. Communication. America's TBS ship-to-ship voice radio allowed coordination. Japan used signal flags and lights. Intelligence. The U.S. decrypted JN-25. Japan never broke U.S. naval codes. Production. The U.S. continuously improved designs. Japan could not retool its factories. Post-war interrogations and memoirs provide verified perspectives. Akagi's Captain Taijiro Aoki testified that improper storage of ordnance on the starboard side doomed his ship. A single bomb hit became a catastrophe due to procedural failures. Yamamoto's operations staff officer, Lieutenant Commander Yasuji Watanabe, confirmed in interrogation that Yamamoto recognized the war was lost immediately after Midway, though this was never publicly stated. George Gay, the sole survivor of Torpedo Squadron 8, provided critical details about Japanese carrier operations during the attack in his detailed post-war report. Modern historians, notably Jonathan Parshaw and Anthony Tully, in their 2005 book Shattered Sword, have corrected many myths. Myth: Japanese carriers were only 5 minutes from launching when attacked. Reality: operational records show it would have taken at least 30 to 40 minutes. Myth: Nagumo should have launched a partial attack. Reality: Japanese doctrine required coordinated attacks. Partial attacks were not practiced. Myth: Japanese reconnaissance was unlucky. Reality: inadequate search patterns were doctrinal, not accidental. The influence of Midway extends beyond the war. Strategic lessons include: intelligence advantage can overcome numerical inferiority. Industrial capacity determines the outcome of prolonged conflicts. Technological adaptability is more important than initial advantage, and logistics and production outweigh tactical brilliance. Doctrinal changes followed. Carriers were no longer concentrated. As at Midway, emphasis shifted to radar and electronic warfare. Damage control became a priority equal to offensive capability, and pilot preservation took precedence over honorable death. Admiral Nimitz's official report summarized, the Battle of Midway was essentially a victory of intelligence. We knew the enemy's intentions, strengths, and timetable. They knew nothing of ours. Japanese naval historian Eiichi Kimura wrote, after Midway, we were defending, not attacking. The U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey, after analyzing Japanese records post-war, concluded that the Imperial Japanese Navy never recovered from Midway. Every subsequent operation was constrained by the losses of June 4th to 5th, 1942. Order of battle: Japan, 4 fleet carriers, 2 light carriers, 11 battleships, 16 cruisers, 46 destroyers, 248 carrier-based aircraft. United States, 3 fleet carriers, 0 battleships, 8 cruisers, 15 destroyers, 233 carrier-based aircraft, 127 land-based aircraft. Losses: Japan, 4 fleet carriers, 1 heavy cruiser, 248 aircraft, 3,357 killed, including 110 aircrew. United States, 1 fleet carrier, 1 destroyer, 150 aircraft, 307 killed. Time factors: Japanese carrier attacks. For 30 a.m. to 9:28 a.m., 5 hours of advantage. U.S. decisive attack, 10:22 a.m. to 10:28 a.m., 6 minutes. Campaign duration: June 4th. For 30 a.m. to June 5th, 9 a.m., approximately 28 hours. Midway stands as a historical testament that intelligence and preparation can defeat surprise and strength. Industrial capacity can overcome samurai spirit, and technological adaptability can surmount initial advantages, while arrogance remains the deadliest enemy in war. The Japanese Navy that attacked Midway on June 4th was the most powerful carrier force ever assembled up to that point. By sunset, that force had been destroyed. The Americans turned the tide not by luck, but by intelligence, preparation, and industrial strength. In the 6 minutes of coordinated dive bomber attacks, the outcome of the Pacific War was decided. Every subsequent battle would be fought with the knowledge that American intelligence and production had already determined the result. Japan fought on for another 3 years, but the possibility of victory sank with the 4 carriers. Northwest of Midway, on June 4th, 1942, The battle proved that modern naval warfare had become a contest of intelligence, technology, and industrial production. Japan brought superior tactics and experience. The United States brought superior intelligence and the ability to replace losses. In that collision, the future defeated the past. Midway remains to this day the greatest victory in U.S. naval history, not only for its tactical success, but because it validated the proposition that the industrial strength and technological innovation of democratic nations can overcome the professionalism of militarism. Japan expected an easy victory. Instead, they encountered the end of their empire.